About an hour ago, Donald Trump addressed the American people following speeches from Prime Minister Albanese of Australia and Prime Minister Stormer of the UK. Both leaders acknowledged rising fuel and gas prices, promising to ease the impact on wallets wherever possible. Trump, however, made it clear this war will continue, hinting America may target Iran's energy and oil infrastructure. He said, "Our economy is strong and improving soon, roaring back beyond previous levels. From the start of Operation Epic Fury, we've aimed to achieve all objectives. And tonight, I can say we're on track to complete America's military goals very soon. Over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will strike hard, bringing them back to the Stone Ages." Essentially, while claiming victory, his words suggest the war isn't yet won. Meanwhile, Peter Hegg, outlining a new strategic map, emphasized that the Iran conflict shows no signs of ending. Some even say it's escalating. Rumors suggest Trump has authorized ground forces, possibly signaling an invasion soon. At the same time, Hegg declared America's control over North America from Greenland to the Panama Canal, enforcing a modern Monroe Doctrine. Trump's approach appears aggressive, provoking Canada, Denmark, Colombia, Mexico, and Cuba, even hinting at potential conflict with the latter. A ground invasion of Iran, however, seems reckless. With only 50,000 troops in the Middle East, America faces rugged mountains, deserts, and vast distances ideal for guerrilla warfare, drones, and artillery strikes. Any assault from Iraq, Pakistan, or the South would be extremely difficult. Analysts believe America's immediate goal is to control the strait, increasing pressure on the global economy. But the region is narrow, mountainous, and easily mined, making invasion perilous. Signs indicate America is preparing for a prolonged war. 50,000 troops are already deployed with reserves on standby. This points to total war readiness. Watching geopolitical and market signals, 3 key indicators suggest a ground invasion is increasingly likely. The Peace Pizza Index is soaring. In the Pentagon, when preparing for a ground invasion, staff work overtime and order more pizza. Gay bars are empty. People aren't out socializing. And large bets are being placed on a grand invasion. Insiders putting hundreds of thousands on it, expecting a payoff in the millions. These are strong indicators the invasion has been approved and is imminent. Trump has said many things. If the U.S. leaves the Middle East, it's not our problem. NATO must secure the Strait of Hormuz because we say so. Though Trump previously angered NATO by threatening Greenland, his actions seem chaotic, inconsistent, even reckless. Assuming a ground invasion proceeds, America would likely lose. Iranians are prepared, and failure would destroy the American empire. The petrodollar, the US dollar as a global reserve, and the global economy would all collapse. Trump might seem like a buffoon, but using game theory, what if this chaos is deliberate? What if he wants the empire to collapse, the global economy to falter? Then, paradoxically, he could be a strategic genius. Today, we'll argue that this chaos may be purposeful, part of a plan. Consider oil. The world gets 20% from the Middle East, largely to East Asia. India 6%, Japan 75%, with Europe and the US also dependent. If ground forces disrupt the region, oil supplies collapse. JP Morgan warns the world could run out of oil by mid-April. But it's not just energy. Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz is creating shortages in phosphate, ammonium, sulfur, and urea, vital for fertilizers, and therefore food production. If this war continues, the world won't just face energy shortages. Food supplies will also dwindle. Helium and sulfur, critical for semiconductor production, and AI technology, are also affected. In short, the Middle East conflict is rippling across the entire market economy, threatening a global collapse. Assuming Trump is a strategic genius, what's his plan? While the Middle East holds oil, it's not the only source. Canada, Venezuela, and Russia also have vast reserves. Closing the Strait of Hormuz doesn't mean the world lacks oil. It shifts dependency toward North America and Russia. Paradoxically, even a losing war benefits the U.S., making Europe, China, Japan, and Australia more reliant on North American resources. Venezuela's importance grows since the U.S. took control earlier this year. While Canada's oil reserves are threatened under Trump's aggressive stance, Europe and East Asia, which consume more oil than they produce, become dependent on the U.S. for energy, food, and strategic resources. The same applies to nitrogen, essential for fertilizers. Regions that once imported nitrogen from the Middle East must now source it from North America, giving the U.S. long-term leverage despite short-term losses. Water resources also indicate stability. Areas with ample water like North America and Russia are secure, while Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and parts of Southeast Asia face high risk. Looking at global stability, North America and Russia are the most resilient, rich in resources, and therefore secure. In contrast, Africa, Europe, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia are flashpoints, prone to conflict. The US and Russia simply maintain stability at home and export resources to unstable regions, profiting handsomely. Yes, Trump seems foolish, and this Middle East war appears reckless. But from a long-term game theory perspective, the US benefits. China seems stable with abundant fresh water, but much of it flows to India and Southeast Asia. In a drought, China could withhold water, creating tension, making surrounding areas unstable, and dragging China into potential conflict. The Middle East war knocks out oil from Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, UAE, and Kuwait, leaving Venezuela, Canada, the US, and Russia as major suppliers. Countries like China, India, Japan, and South Korea, heavily reliant on Middle Eastern oil, must now turn to North America or Russia. This shift strengthens U.S. influence as these nations remain dependent on American resources. The same logic applies to U.S. debt. With $39 trillion owed, fear of default exists. But as long as Europe and Asia need energy, fertilizer, and resources, they must continue buying U.S. treasuries. The debt becomes manageable. In effect, Trump's apparent chaos, the war, the disruptions, unintentionally positions the U.S. as indispensable, transforming his recklessness into long-term strategic leverage, much like Putin's proven strategy in Ukraine. Let's look at Ukraine. Dark red shows contested areas. Pink shows territories Russia aims to capture. Even after 4 or 5 years, Russia still has a long way to go, meaning this conflict could drag on for 10, 20 years. Despite losses and economic strain, a slow war of attrition benefits Russia by restructuring its economy around war production. Military industries marked in pink dominate civilian industries in blue. Over time, Russia is becoming a full war economy, focusing on munitions and drones. Initially reliant on Iran for drones, Russia has ramped up domestic production, now even exporting drones to Iran, preparing for a prolonged conflict. This aligns with Russia's Third Rome strategy from Alexander Dugin's Foundations of Geopolitics. Dugin predicts the unipolar moment of American dominance will collapse due to Western secularism, individualism, and liberalism. When Western societies crumble, Russia only needs to remain stable, cohesive, and unified, relying on nationalism, religion, and faith while the global order disintegrates. He anticipates U.S. civil conflict, Chinese instability, Middle East chaos, and European collapse. Russia's plan is simple. Stay coherent, defend its territory, unify internally, and build strategic allies, potentially including Japan to support its long-term vision. Russia's allies in this plan could include Vietnam, India, and Iran. By combining forces, they create a trading bloc. In the nuclear age, you avoid direct war, but collapse is coming. Staying coherent and defending borders is what ensures long-term advantage. War serves to unify nationalism and faith, strengthening society to weather crisis. The Ukraine invasion wasn't a NATO response. It's part of Russia's Third Rome vision. Controlling Ukraine gives Russia a third of the world's grain and significant energy, enabling exports to Africa, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. The goal: build a self-sufficient fortress to survive global collapse. The U.S. responds with its own grand plan called the Technate, essentially Greater North America. Trump's recent moves with Greenland, Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela aim to consolidate this self-sufficient North American bloc, mirroring Moscow's Third Rome. By destabilizing the Middle East, Europe and Asia become dependent on North American energy and fertilizers, giving the U.S. leverage and resources to construct the Technate. Looking back, the post-Cold War New World Order began with George H.W. Bush in 1991. Its 3 pillars were: make America the global financial capital, offshoring resources while Wall Street dominates; promote secular multiculturalism, uniting the world through money and consumerism rather than borders or identity; global domination via providing security for trade worldwide. This sets the stage for understanding why current U.S. strategies, chaos in the Middle East, and Trump's territorial ambitions all tie into a long-term plan to reshape global dependence and power. George H.W. Bush's 1991 New World Order had 3 pillars: America as the global financial capital, offshoring resources and focusing on finance; secular multiculturalism, uniting the world through consumerism and money; global domination with America guaranteeing peace and security. Trump's world order is a response. He asks, why should America defend everyone else and bankroll the world? Why should Americans pay for European welfare and pensions? Trump's answer is a shift from finance to resources and manufacturing, preparing America for a world of permanent conflict. America becomes a self-sufficient fortress protected by 2 oceans. Multiculturalism is rejected in favor of Christian nationalism, a focus on faith, nation, and identity. Open borders, immigration, and DEI policies are replaced with MAGA, national rejuvenation, rebuilding America's manufacturing, and exploiting domestic resources to ensure every American thrives. So, while Trump appears chaotic, engaging in Middle East conflicts and angering NATO allies, from a long-term game theory perspective, the goal is to collapse the old global order, weaken rivals, and rebuild America stronger. By this logic, Trump may be seen not as a fool, but as a strategic genius. The world's collapse is seen as inevitable by leaders like Putin and Trump. Post-Wabun, America lent to Europe and Japan to buy American goods, creating jobs. Over time, productivity shifted abroad, making Europe and Japan, especially Germany, do more of the work, sowing structural fragility that leaders now exploit in this global game. Over time, America shifted from being a productive lender to a consumer. Manufacturing moved abroad, especially to China, which produced goods cheaply while lending America the money to buy them. This created a system where Americans worked less, became indebted, and inequality skyrocketed, leading to corruption and the rise of an oligarchy. Donald Trump's election can be seen as a response to this systemic fragility. He understood intuitively that the system could not remain stable and would eventually collapse. The goal then was to control the collapse so that he and his allies from Christian evangelicals to Silicon Valley elites could benefit most. The Middle East war fits into this plan. By destabilizing global energy and resource markets, it accelerates America's economic transition from a finance-based economy to one centered on resource exportation and manufacturing. This reshapes the U.S. economy to be more self-sufficient and strategically positioned for long-term advantage. Finally, war is not just economics or geopolitics. It's also historical and religious. History, memory, and myth converge to shape societies. Religion preserves ancient truths through stories, while geopolitics and economics drive the historical forces that unfold in the present. Understanding war requires looking at all these layers together. Another way to understand this is that multiple factors, religious, geopolitical, and historical, often align. By analyzing events across these vectors, you can make more accurate predictions about what will happen. While the timing might be uncertain, the key players and outcomes become clearer. This method of multidimensional analysis is how I approach forecasting complex global events.